Factor by grouping. It is the case that we have the terms of polynomial grouped in a suitable way. The GCF method, or the greatest common factor method, may apply to each group, and a common factor might subsequently be found among the groups. Let's see an example. For this example too, we factor the following polynomials by grouping. Normally, we are dealing with the expression with the four terms. So when we work on this case by doing the factoring by grouping, we can group the first two terms and group the last two terms and look for the common factor or the GCF. So this case, we group the 4x minus 2x squared as one quantity added by the last two terms, which is negative 2x to the third plus x to the fourth, which is another quantity. And then we work on the GCF of each term or each group. For the first group, we have 4x minus 2x squared. For the number 4 and 2, the common factor or the greatest common factor would be 2. So we need to 2 out. And for the x, the lowest power would be x to the first. So we take the 2x out as the GCF of the first group. So the remaining factor would be 2 times 1 because with the 4, we take the 2 out. So we have 2 left. And then the variable x already out as a GCF. And in the second term, the 2 out, the x squared, one factor out, so then remain 1x inside. And you can check your work by distributing the 2x back into the parentheses. You should get back to the same two terms as 4x minus 2x squared. All right, do similar to the second group or the second term. We have negative 2, x to the third plus x to the fourth. For the numbers, we have negative 2 and 1, so we don't have anything to do with that. But for the x to the third and x to the fourth, we're going to take the greatest common factor, which is the lowest power of the x term, or x to the third. So in this case, we're going to have the x to the third as a coefficient. And then the remaining factor for the first term going to be negative 2, and then the second term going to be x. Right now, we have the quantity 2 minus x, and the other one is negative 2 plus x. Almost look the same, but note that if we factor the negative sign out from the last group, you will get the same factor as the first group, or vice versa. So basically, we have in the form of a minus b and b minus a. But we use the quantity that a minus b is negative of b minus a. So with this way, we just rewrite it in the form that we are looking for. So for this part or the next step, we would get the first part the same, and then pull out the negative side or factor the negative side out for the second term. And then the in parentheses is going to be 2 minus x because the sign becomes opposite. And in this case, we will see the greatest common factor in the form of the quantity 2 minus x for both terms. So we can pull them out together. So 2 minus x as the greatest common factor. And the remaining term for the first going to be 2x, and the last going to be negative x to the third. And this is the product of the two terms. As we start as a sum, now we have the product. But almost done for this problem, because we can see the common factor x that we can take out one more time. For the x to the first power and x to the third, the lowest power is the greatest common factor. So that means we can factor the 1x out of these two terms within the quantity parentheses that you say. For the negative, for the 2 minus x, we have nothing to do with that. For the second quantity, we pull out the x as the greatest common factor, and then the remaining factor going to be 2 for the first term minus x to the second for the second term. And then we can rewrite in the nicer form as x times 2 minus x times 2 minus x to the second as the factor of 4x minus 2x squared minus 2x to the third plus x to the fourth. In part B, we have ax minus 3bx plus 3 times ay minus 9 times by. To factor by grouping, we're going to start with grouping the first two terms and the last two terms. And next, look for the greatest common factor of each group. The first one has the greatest common factor as x. The second group has the greatest common factor as the value 3 and the variable y. So let's work on the first one. We get the greatest common factor out, which is the x. So then the remaining factor of the first term going to be a, the second term going to be 3 times b. And similar to the second one, we have the greatest common factor as a number, which is 3, as a variable, as a y. And now inside of the parentheses, we have the remaining factor as a, and then minus 3 times b. It happens to have the same factor, or these are like terms, or we can consider the GCF for this step is a minus 3b. So we're gonna factor the quantity a minus 3b out as the common factor and then multiply by the remainder term, which is the x plus 3y.